New data from the Edelman Trust Barometer reveals a startling insight. Only 32% of Americans trust artificial intelligence, despite its growing prevalence in our daily lives and our business operations. This trust gap presents significant challenges for professionals integrating AI into their sales and pre-sales processes from day to day. Hi, everyone. I'm Jack Cochran, General Manager of Presales Collective, and this is the Presales Podcast, where we explore topics critical to success in our field of pre-sales. Today's episode is a special recording from our recent Presales AI Summit featuring our distinguished guest, Diana Capello. Diana is currently the Director of Solutions Consulting for US and Demo Engineering at Eightfold, where she leads teams across the Americas and India with a focus on increasing revenue and optimizing demo cycles. Her extensive background includes leadership roles at Cleary, where she managed sales engineering teams, and at Aptus, where she helped grow their sales engineering team from 7 to over 100 professionals. Joining us as well as my co-host Matthew James as well to discuss Buy, Sell, Beware, examining the ethics and trust issues surrounding AI in our sales environments. If you missed any of our AI Summit sessions, you can find them all on the Presales Collective's YouTube channel, where you can also watch the video version of this podcast if you prefer viewing to listening. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get on with the episode. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Jack Cochran, General Manager at the Presales Collective. Joining me today is my co-host, the very talented Matthew James. Welcome, Matthew.
Hey, everyone. So happy to be here talking about everyone's favorite topic, AI, not pizza. I'm New York Solutions Engineer and so excited also to have Diana Capello with us.
Thanks, everyone. Diana Capello. I work at Eightfold as a Director of Solutions Consulting, responsible for the whole US as well as demo engineering.
Excellent. We're very happy to have you here and happy to dive into our conversation. So first, let's begin. Diana, I'd love for you to just give us a little bit about your background. I know AI plays a big part of your role in your day-to-day, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
So a little bit about my background. Before I was an SC, I was actually a BDR, and I was helping sell a software that would gather big data so that one could run an analysis. So I was actually working in AI before I knew I was working in AI. So we called it big data back then, but I've been in the AI space in different roles for almost 20 years now, almost on accident. Being in the Bay Area, every company I've worked for has had AI in it. So currently at Eightfold, and as somebody who's responsible for demo engineering, I use AI a lot to create fake data for the demo environment. I also evaluate the vendors that we're purchasing that all have AI in them. So like we use Alto to generate demo data. We use Vivin. We use the AI to time track. So all those vendors. So from a purchasing side, I'm a buyer of AI, but then I'm also a seller of AI. So at Eightfold, we use two types of AI. We have the recommendation kind of AI, like we work in the HR space. So we will match a resume to a job, a person to a job, and tell you how likely you are to be successful in that role. So it's a recommendation engine, but we also use Gen AI to help you write your resume or do other things. That's where my background is the strongest, in that projection type AI as well as the LLMs and soon to be agents. So I'm picking up on the agents right now.
We just had a topic about agents and how it's coming from before, which if you didn't pick that up, you can check out the replay that we're going to be posting, I think next week, for everything going on here. I think the first thing I wanted to dive into, because this has been top of mind for a lot of people, actually kind of came up at some of the earlier sessions today as well, is around customer trust. Because with a lot of the tools that we're using as pre-sellers specifically, I'm not talking about how can you trust the AI using it right, but how can you maintain trust with your customers while using AI? Because the last thing I want is to feel like I'm being sold to something that's just something someone get off of ChatGPT. I want to be engaging with someone, I want to actually talk to a human. How do you keep that trust when leveraging things like AI in your demos or things that you're potentially building there as well?
So AI in the demos, I'll start there. I see it as by generating AI data specific to their industry or use case, you are giving them confidence that it'll work for them. If I came in and every example was ABC, XYZ, 1, 2, 3, it's really hard for them to imagine it working for them. Or if I show a healthcare industry person something from telco, they're like, this doesn't hit for me. So the demo data giving a situationally realistic example of what those records would look like, that helps build trust that the product will work for them. But then as person to person, if I come in and I make a whole bunch of assumptions about your business based off what discovery I did in some Chat GPT or Gemini or something else, I could be completely wrong, or I could have or old information. So that will erode trust really quickly. So I need to cite my sources when I do that. If I come in and I say, hey, based on what my AE told me and what we read in your 10K, I understand you are tackling these initiatives right now. Is that correct? What else matters to you? So it establishes a baseline of showing I cared enough to do my own research, and I'm validating it with you to understand your perspective. I think that's how we build trust with the AI.
Yeah, I think the validation there is absolutely key, right? It needs to be something that someone isn't just taking your word for it. And I feel like that goes even with or without using AI. Why would you trust me, even though I seem like a trustworthy person? Why would you trust me anyways? And being able to provide that validation is very absolutely critical.
What I've seen out there with most companies we're selling to is that they have an AI mandate. Everyone's been told it's the next big wave, so start using it. But then when you actually get into these conversations, it's one thing to have that directive from their leaders. It's another thing to actually create change there. And Diana, you laid this out in the way that we do this in our sales processes. We say, here's what I know about you. And as a result, here are the recommendations that I make. So similarly, we want to get to that in AI too. When it's not obvious how it's working, it can put the customer's guard up. So how have you approached explaining how an AI is actually working and getting to the results when you're selling an AI product?
I'm very lucky right now in this role that our AI explains the matching. Like if you were to hover over the 5-star ranking, it would break out, here are the 4 categories of information we're assessing you on, and this is how strong you are in each category based on the words that are in your resume and based on other resumes we know like yours. So it is very transparent. And so we make sure to say that in every demo. Here's our transparency. You want a tool like this so that you can make a judgment call yourself. In the past, I've sold applications where maybe it does that in one part of the product, but not another. So that's when I usually get hung up with questions like, wait, how did it come up with that specific score? Why does it think that? And because I knew how to speak the product, I could translate, but I wouldn't expect a new user to be able to do that. So when working with our product teams, that's one of the first things I give them feedback on is like, how would a layman be able to interpret this for themselves and be able to apply their own judgment using the same information that the model got?
What's the reception like typically when you bring that up and you say, we need to make this a little more easily understood by our users?
Nobody pushes back. They get it. It's just a prioritization. The other cool new thing that they're rolling out, right? It's not reporting and any of that. It's audits aren't fun or cool or innovative. So getting an engineer to want to work on that's a challenge.
That's understandable. And what you were saying about the scores and people not trusting it, I have felt that. I remember when Gong actually rolled out, they first rolled out like scoring your calls based upon certain topics and your responses to it. We sent everything through and just analyzed all our last calls from the last 2 months and looked at the scores and we went, they seem just like numbers. I don't know why it's doing one number versus the other. And maybe there's some truth there, but because we had no one there who could help us to understand what was being done, why, what are the types of things it's looking for, we had no way to identify if something was a false positive or a false negative or whatever that would be, what that would say. And we instantly just completely discarded it because we had no trust in it. We didn't have anyone there who could help explain that. So I've felt that very acutely.
It actually lost credibility because you couldn't understand what it was giving you.
Right. It's the throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I literally said, well, since I can't understand a few of these, I can't trust any of it.
So that's a good point because we do have customers that push back. Like we're going to talk about later is some of these AI councils will say, no, that's too risky. You can't apply a score to an applicant. We have to leave that to a human. So to prove to that customer. We looked at, they used our product for a year without using the scoring. We ran an analysis of what were the scores of the people they did hire and what was the duration of their tenure at the company. And it was mind-blowing. There were two completely different lines of like 3-star and above. It stayed an average of 2 years at that point. That's the data we had. And then 2-star and below on average was like 81 days. And then we did the same analysis on other customers that gave us permission. And we are now building this asset for our selling team for when they run into that objection. We can say, on the whole, across our customers, we can see a repeatable trend to say a higher score equates to a longer term employee, which we can infer is a higher quality hire. So that's why you can feel good about trusting the score.
It's almost more about helping someone to know how to use it and how not to use it in that case, right? Maybe don't strictly just go off of the score, but this is meant to be an indicator. Here's how to use it as another data point in that example you had just given. It feels like there's more of that direction.
Right. Another point here too is that wasn't our team that did that research. There was somebody on the engineering team who had access to the customer data to do that. And even at Clary, we ran something similar on the product team. They took that initiative. So as pre-sales leaders, we need to go to those teams and say, hey, here's the pushback we're getting. What data do you have that I can put together a use case or a white paper or something to help me overcome this objection?
That speaks to how our customers come to us. They're not benefiting just from our technology, but also from the fact that we have this industry experience, because our customers are only going to be extremely well-versed in their business. They might miss out on some of these macro trends, which we're able to help them out with. I guess AI is just that next way of interpreting it. Can we still go and refine our AI by looking at our internal teams and our partners who have access to that kind of data? Is that the kind of thing that you have pitched when you're going to these internal or the AI councils that are buying from you? How has that looked?
AI councils come in a lot of flavors. It's a new trend. So in the last 3-4 years, I've seen this pop up more and more, especially in the enterprises. Just like you have to clear InfoSec, you got to go in front of the InfoSec team and present how you comply with GDPR and all this stuff. Now we're seeing, there's an AI council. They're new and they have some questions. And we don't know the questions in advance usually. But on the whole, these AI councils are made up of people from different departments in the company. Some are definitely from legal. Others may be somebody who just has experience in AI in their past and got put on the council. So it could be anywhere from 1 person to 10 people. We don't know. There could be multiple AI councils at especially large enterprises, and you never know what they're going to ask. So it's really hard to templatize a pitch or a presentation to them. And so our SAs handle those, solutions architects, but they're like constantly reacting in those conversations. They have to be quick on their feet and read the room and have resources available that they can pull up as needed. So we're still trying to figure out a repeatable win for that one. But what I'm seeing is a lot of the sellers, even the sellers who have 20 years experience, don't have experience handling AI councils, don't even know that they need to pass it. And the buyer doesn't even know they exist. So you'll get to like stage 6 and you're about to sign the contract and someone in procurement goes, have you talked to the AI council yet? Your deal's delayed by a quarter.
I guess what's intriguing about that is I think most companies at some point have at least a guideline, right? But are you finding that the councils are pretty much everywhere? And I guess the question to that is, I know you said they all look a little bit different, but have you seen any trends emerging as to it's these types of people, these are the types of things that they care about, at least from a being prepped perspective for you?
So legal's definitely on there. IT's usually on there. And like you said, they usually have a guideline. Some are very strict and some are loosey-goosey. We're actually launching ours on Thursday. So my legal team gave me a preview of it. So we're a small company. We're sub 1,000 and we have a guideline. The types of questions we're getting is especially around compliance. So how do you comply with all the laws that are going on in Europe right now? And then New York signed some things in a law that's going to take effect very soon, specifically about using HR tech to hire or to select candidates. So how do you help a client of yours comply with the New York law? How do you comply with the New York law? What about California law, which is totally different? So a lot of the law type questions come up, and then security comes up. So we especially ran into this when we were purchasing some AI tools. Our legal counsel had hesitation about doing business with a startup because they were so small. How could they possibly put manpower on really securing? And so what data are we giving them? Is it our customers' data? Is it fake demo data to begin with? Like, where did this data come from? How are they going to access it? So it's security and controls that seem to be the recurring questions. Is it based on Microsoft? Is it based on Google? Like, what's the technology behind it?
Are you saying that security is separate from like the traditional security review, or is that the security review is now including the AI counsel as a part of it, or is it completely separate?
They may go hand in hand. They may be separate, and they may ask the same questions, or they may ask nuanced questions on each. For example, all of our buyers sign in our contract that the information that we have access to is used to train our models, but will not be shared with anyone else. It's anonymized. And so they want to know, can I get out of that clause? Everyone asks, no. And they want to know, okay, how is it anonymized? To what degree is it anonymized? To what degree does it impact your model? And to what degree does my competitor benefit from that?
It's an interesting point because they're asking the right kinds of questions. We've all been aware of how data has been misused, mishandled. So these companies are very much in the right place to ask these questions. And we need to come equipped with the right ways to make them have confidence that we're compliant. So I work at a company of less than 200 people, maybe similar to that startup that you were looking to purchase from, Diana. What would have helped you as a buyer pitch to your legal teams that this was compliant?
So the founders got on the phone, talked to our legal team. We did end up buying this product. It didn't hurt that the founders are friends with our founders. Relationships help. And the fact that they weren't accessing any data about our customers was a big one. It was our demo data. So it was like, okay, once we figured out with legal the source of that demo data, then it was deemed safe, like below a risk threshold. We weren't going to get sued if that company leaked that data on accident or got hacked. There was no risk to our customers.
That's something that I've definitely seen, especially when you're selling to larger organizations, bigger even than Eightfold, right? Once you're selling to an organization of 10,000 people, their risk and compliance teams, their legal teams will have so many things coming across their desk that they're probably not that familiar with what kinds of data you are trying to work with them on and what kinds of AI you'll be working with them on. So it's almost like every single time we have the chance to get on a call with them, we start at ground zero and we're like, okay, just as a reminder, we're accessing these specific kinds of data to give this team that you have help on this process. And that kind of helps frame everything. Because when you hear, okay, there's an LLM involved, there's something involved, lots of red flags are going off, the more we can scope that back, that has helped us drive actually a lot of alignment with those teams. Because then sometimes we hear compliance teams saying like, oh, thank goodness, because I thought we were going to have to go down this whole thing. Like, thank you for making that clear to us.
And the more you can tie to an existing LLM, like we didn't make up our own, we're leveraging ChatGPT, but it's a nuanced program version of it specific to our application. Then folks are like, oh, well, we already have a contract with ChatGPT, so this will go smoother.
I've seen that has picked up significant traction over the past, like even just 6 months, where people used to be very not aware of the different models that were out there. Now that people are, and people already starting to trust things from Anthropic, like ChatGPT, OpenAI, et cetera. It's making people who build their models based on those, it makes that conversation a little bit easier, which is good to see that progress. But I will say, I'm actually very happy personally as a consumer that those barriers are being put in place and people are having that hesitation, because that's not always been the case. Like that's been the whole thing that we saw with, you would go buy something from American Eagle and all of a sudden you're getting emails from everybody, or worst case scenario, like someone who your bank does business with had a data breach and your bank is now telling you your bank information has been leaked because of their partner. I think the entire ecosystem around data and how it's used we had enough breaches that we learned from it before we got to the point of everything being thrown haphazardly into larger models. I feel like it's a good thing. If we hadn't learned those lessons, I feel like the amount of damage that could have been done were we not asking the questions now would have been a lot bigger.
And we still see that people unknowingly, especially early in LLMs, would load up product specs for an unreleased product. And now everyone can see what's coming in the next version of the iPhone, right? Yeah. I forget the exact story. It was a car or an iPhone or something. That was completely on accident and probably well-intentioned use of AI. And then there's malicious AI, malicious use of AI. AI itself is not malicious or well-intentioned, not yet. I can use the AI to put on this lipstick, right, in Zoom, or I can use the AI to replicate somebody's face and frame them for a crime, right? It is the same technology. So there's accidental application with a negative consequence, and then there's intentional application with a negative consequence, and we want to avoid both.
Yes.
So we've talked a little bit about how pre-sales people should be thinking about AI. We've talked about how to sell to these new AI councils. We would be remiss, Diana, if we didn't ask you, because you're kind of a specialist on this topic, what AI looks like in hiring these days. So the question I have is, since we are now using AI looking for candidates, how have you seen this change, and what advice would you have on the whole?
So sad to say, most of the AI being used in recruiting and screening applicants today is simply keyword matching. Sorry, no secret sauce there for most of our competitors. There are a few like ourselves that are legitimately using AI, and I'll break down the difference. Keyword matching, first of all, if I were to do my resume today, I would go to an LLM and put in the job description, put in my LinkedIn profile, and say, please create me a resume that aligns with the words in the job description, that uses these keywords in the job description. So that is what's going to get your resume higher in the rankings for a lot of those keyword matching technologies. Now, with our technology, we don't go on face value, because you might be terrible at writing a resume, or 500 of you use ChatGPT to write the exact same resume. So we need to figure out how to find not just what you declare your skills to be, but what skills are you capable of learning. So for example, if you worked at Cisco, and we have thousands of other applicants that worked at Cisco, and they all claim hardware as a skill, but you did not, we will assume and infer that you probably know hardware too. So we're going to help you out in that way and show the recruiter, here's what they declared, here's what we inferred, and then here's what they didn't declare on the resume, but you said are required. So make sure to ask about that in the interview. So that's one of the ways we're using AI. It's like this giant word cloud showing connections, like coffee could be you're a barista at Starbucks, or coffee as a skill could mean you know how to code the coding language coffee, and you worked at Starbucks in the engineering team doing that. So we know based on the title, the company, and the skill, is it applicable for software engineering or for baristas? And then we know based on who's been hired for past similar roles, if you're likely to get hired for that role or be successful in that role. That's what our competitors have termed old AI, which I'm quite proud of, because yes, the model's been around for 8 years. It is very mature, and it learns and teaches itself. Now, LLM is coming in here. LLM can help an applicant write a resume. LLM can help a recruiter get through a bunch of candidates by summarizing the candidate's top qualities, sending it to the hiring manager, and say, who do you want to interview in here? And cut through the noise. We're also adding agents. So this is really new and exciting. Copilot was great. It had its moment. It has its limitations, though, as in you need prompts, right? But agents in hiring right now, what we're looking at is the poor recruiter has 5,000 applicants in 3 days because everybody's applying using AI. So there's a lot more applicants. How do we get first interviews with all of them as quickly as possible? Give everyone a fair shot. An agent will call you now, and you can give permission. It'll introduce itself as an agent. Would you like to do an agentic interview? Yes, I give consent. It will interview you. It will record everything, and it will summarize the result back to the recruiter and say, based on this, we think this person should be moved to the next round or not. And here's the highlights of that conversation and why. So again, you can opt out. That's key here, giving people a chance to opt out. But that's the future. That's where it's going to go. I have a feeling most of us here are going to be interviewed by an agent pretty soon.
There's that theme again of not just kind of answering point by point questions, but looking across your database. That's where the term intelligence actually comes in, right? That's, I think, what human intelligence is a lot of the time. It's creating organic connections between things which maybe are not organically connected. And I guess that's something that people should be looking for as a differentiator if they're looking for whatever kinds of AI they're buying right now. And you even said, make sure that the AI you're buying is really AI. It's not just something that's super basic. Make sure it's doing something that is going to differentiate. That was a couple of really good examples, but have you ever had an example where you're seeing AI is going poorly in hiring?
Yeah, not throwing them under the bus because I'm a huge Amazon fan, but it is out there. There's an article. You can Google it. Unfortunately, Amazon took a swing at this themselves. I think it was back in 2014. They tried to code a solution that would identify who should be hired or not at Amazon. The problem is they only use their data as the data set, and their data was heavily skewed male. So they unintentionally fed data into the AI that self-learned and self-perpetuated this bias against women. And it would eliminate women from the interviews based on what college they went to. Were they on a volleyball team? Like subtle things that would identify them as male or female. So it's really important. You could be the most well-intentioned coder, but you've got to code out the bias intentionally. You've got to test for bias regularly. You got to scrutinize your data set. It has to be big for this kind of thing. I mean, there's real world consequences here. Other competitors, I won't name them, but they have been sued by applicants saying, hey, every company I've applied to that uses your software, I haven't gotten through the interview process. So I think it's you.
I think the bias question or piece is very relevant to consider even outside of this process, right? Because what bias are you potentially introducing to even how you're using AI yourself with tools that are already out there, much less how the AI that you're using was or was not coded to take out that bias. I think that's something key to keep in mind that I know I don't have as much front and center, but will now be on my consideration list when I'm thinking about things. Without naming names, either who you heard it from or who the actual company was that was helping that, you have to have heard some actual like personal examples of people who had just maybe good intention that led to very poor results, kind of similar to Amazon. Lydia, if you have any other stories of that as well that you can lead us into.
Not personal, but I don't know that anyone like totally wants to share. Like, hey, I'm the one that leaked the private documents, right? So no, it's more secondhand. You know, people use AI for all sorts of things, so we're constantly sharing that. But no, nobody's admitted any negative outcome personally yet.
Gotcha.
One more thing. So if those of you that chatted with me before would know, I will not leave a call without making a book recommendation. So this book was recommended by someone in our company who we hired who used to be a consultant to HR companies. And so he recommended AI Superpowers. I love this book. It's almost like a short history lesson because AI hasn't been around for very long, only since the 50s. But it goes into the political and social history of AI superpowers of China and US and like what's gone on and is going on behind the scenes at a company and a government level. So really interesting, fast read. It has very little to do with the actual tech and application of AI, but I find that context to be really enlightening.
You know what? That kind of thing helps us a lot when we get into these deeper technical conversations. If you can kind of take it out a step, sometimes that can give a lot of clarity. Being able to speak about it in a more normal way without having to rely on the technical capabilities. I mean, that's what we're here for as pre-sales people, right? Being able to map to the people whatever depth of technology they want to speak to.
Yeah. And you mentioned the 50s. I know you're not wrong. I remember I actually looked that up. Like, when did AI start? There was like a group that got together to specifically think about AI sometime in like the mid 50s. Was it Cambridge?
Yeah, it was like
Cambridge?
a college think tank.
It was a college think tank, yeah. I think we even talked about it on the podcast a few episodes ago. When computer science was starting, they were already thinking about AI, which is absolutely crazy.
We got to ask, what is AI? Is it AI when I ask my calculator to do a very complex sum that I couldn't do myself? Sort of. At what point does it really cross over into that interesting things that we're doing today?
I was trying to explain this to my husband. He works in the sewer department. So It's a fun
Lots of AI
conversation.
there.
I like explaining what the LLM is versus like projection type AI, which is typically where I've worked, versus task-based AI, which was kind of more in the beginning, like built for purpose to do X or speed X up. And now I was just Googling it because I want to make sure I use the right terms this morning. And one of them that jumped out to me that creeped me out, I forget the name of it now, but it was like this new type of AI that's coming that has feelings. And I was just like, I don't need you to have feelings for me, please. So that's coming.
This is the thing, right? We maybe have been primed to think of AIs in the same ways that we've seen them come across in the movies. How many times have you hopped on a call? You're like, all right, we're going to talk to you about AI. And they're like, here comes the Terminator. So when I think about AI having feelings, it makes me think of that.
Yes. I legitimately had to have the conversation with a relative of mine who was scared of AI because they're talking about them as though they have things that they desire and want. I'm like, just
Right.
so you know, primarily pattern matching at this point. Like we haven't gone much farther than that. They're like, oh, I'm like, it's just literally doing vectorization to figure out the next best word when you really break it down to it. And they were like, oh, so we're not quite there. I'm like, we're not quite there. Not saying we won't get there, but there is no desire built into any AI. No AI is desiring to do things yet.
We'll be the first people to let you know as soon as there are.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll know. At that point, we might be already on the wrong side of an AI versus, but as far as we know, we're not there yet. Let's hop into the Q&A. Here's a question from Megana. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. In terms of trust, transparency, and responsible AI, what are the key challenges and best approaches for solution consultants in AI product companies?
So one, make sure as you're articulating how your product works and is used, make sure you don't skip over. And here's how you, the end user, can have trust in the recommendation. So make sure you're including that as part of your demo, but then also carry back that feedback to your product team. Hey, we can't be a black box in this situation. Here's why folks need to know and what they need to know about what the AI is suggesting to them. But as far as like, as a pre-sales person, we don't build the product, but ensuring you understand the source of the data, the volume of the data, how the code is being designed to eliminate bias. It has to be intentional. It can't be overlooked. Ask those questions of your product team.
Here's a question from Ramesha. Are you thinking of validating actual experience by prompting a few questions and rank resume based on the response? So is that a good built-in piece of the process?
It will be with these new agents. So we're still looking for 5 design partners. So I don't know where the design will land, but that's the plan, is just like it provides a score based on the resume, it'll provide a score based on the interview.
I've got a question here from Daryl, who is kind of helping us take AI and ground it a little bit. AI is relatively new world for buyers. How do you help customers navigate through success and what that looks like in adoption? So customers don't know today how to measure that kind of success after they've purchased an AI tool.
Yep. So here at Eightfold, we have a pattern we call the 3 E's. So efficiency, effectiveness, and experience. Those are the 3 broad categories that we provide value to our customers in. As a SC, I demo in those categories and I speak about that. Here's how we make your team more efficient. Here's how they're going to be more effective. Similarly, the CSMs are also aligned on that. And when they meet with a customer, one of the first slides they show is, here are those 3 categories. Do you track today any of these metrics we've laid out? We will use that to show you value. No, you don't? Okay, here's recommendation. Here are 9 or so metrics that you could track using our product to show over the next 3-6 year what ROI you're getting from the application.
Anecdotally, when you show those metrics, how often do they say, yes, we are already tracking that, and how often is it net new to them?
I'd say 80%, they're like, oh, what metrics?
Right.
Yeah, because they can't, right? They don't have a system yet.
One question from Ina. You talked about including keywords from job descriptions to our CV. Don't you feel the CV then looks too good to be true? It's not possible for anyone to have experience or knowledge on all the keywords mentioned in the job description. What are your thoughts on this?
First of all, make sure it's true. Don't just throw keywords in there. Don't make your resume a whole list of keywords. Make sure you legit have those experiences. If you don't, make sure you highlight how you have some related skill. Like, for example, I almost didn't get hired at Clary because I didn't know how to code JSON. I was a Salesforce admin. I knew how to code in their language. I forget the name of it now. But because I mentioned that, luckily I had a hiring manager who knew, and he was like, oh, well, if you learned that, you could totally learn JSON. And he gave me a quick test and I passed. So he did basically what our software is doing. So do that yourself. If you don't have that direct skill, make sure you highlight, well, because I was a teacher, I have excellent communication skills that carry over well to talking about complex topics in a simple light. So you can like help the reader bridge the gap. But the other thing is you're assuming there's a real reader. The larger the company, the less likely there is. You're probably getting passed through a model first and foremost, and they're not going to judge you harshly for having the keywords.
Got a hot question here, which actually is like making me think more deeply about how I position this stuff. From Jason, how do you address the concern from people in the buying committee who think AI could replace their jobs?
That's the first thing that comes up in HR. Given the climate in the US, we've had a lot of layoffs in tech. A lot of people they've been parts of cuts. And so they're very concerned you're going to replace the recruiter. But it's back to everything we've been talking about today. No, we're not replacing the recruiter. Maybe a scheduler. If you have interns scheduling meetings for you, yeah, maybe them, but they aren't being replaced. They're being reassigned to something of higher value, of a more rewarding type of work. So your recruiters are spending less time scheduling folks, sending emails, writing emails, reading resumes, more time talking to people, interviewing them, making assessments and recommendations, negotiating. Those are the high value activities that recruiters got into the job to do. We're making the team more efficient, which some would argue means I don't have to hire more, but it is what it is. We are helping that team that you have do more.
I think tying it to their business as a whole is so spot on. You're right. These team members didn't get hired on to do low leverage tasks. Can we use AI to make it so that we're increasing their 3 E's and making them more effective? Because every company out there is going to have really big goals that they're trying to hit by the end of the year. So if we can kind of like tie that through, your team's going to be more effective. They're going to have more time to do the things that you really want them to do. And then you're going to hit your goals as a company more effectively. I think that is spot on, right? When people say, oh, you're just eliminating roles, we're just not thinking big enough.
Yeah. The healthcare industry has a saying, work at the top of license. So what they mean by that is they don't want the nurse emptying the trash can.
Yeah.
They don't want the doctor taking a temperature. What AI allows us all to do, recruiters included, work at the top of their license.
That is an awesome phrase. I'm going to remember that.
I love that. That's very right. Like the more you can do to get someone to work at the thing that they're the most specialized in, why wouldn't you want to do that? Absolutely. I love that. There's a takeaway for everybody. Work at the top of your license. I don't want to run out of time to actually ask this one question. I appreciate all the questions there, everyone hopping in the chat as well. I'm going to throw first this question to Matthew. What is one thing you're kind of taking away from this session around using AI and selling AI that's going to change how you progress with things?
Do not take any knowledge of AI for granted when I'm pitching or when I'm trying to think of what my customers are thinking of. And that can be as basic as make sure that if I'm selling AI, I'm extremely specific about what it does. Diana gave that experience of like, this is not just text matching. We are going beyond that. Other people might be saying AI to you and you might think it means one thing, but I'm going to tell you exactly what that means, not just in our technology, but then of course, how it relates to you and your teams. Diana's got the 3 E's. Probably everyone can come up with a thing that their company and their AI tools are going to impact as well.
Yeah, mine for me is very similar. I see a lot of things that AI tools promise, but I never have paused before to ask, well, but how are you doing that? How can you make these claims that you're going to do that? And I need to get to a little bit of that to be comfortable myself with it. So that's my takeaway. Diana, slightly different question. What's the takeaway you want us to walk away with?
The takeaway is use AI to your advantage however you can, whether it's in applying for a job or assessing candidates. Claim AI, learn AI. That's going to make you much more hireable in the future. So get in there, get your hands dirty. Just make sure you're not oversharing when you post anything that gets fed into the model.
Exactly. Don't put your company's secret differentiators into an AI model or key hidden features or the roadmap. Diana, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us for this special edition of the Presales Podcast. A reminder for everyone that you can find the entire Presales podcast archive at presalescollective.com/podcast. And you can join us. Normally it's every other Tuesday live for Presales Live, which is similar to this, a live recording of the Presales Podcast. We actually do this now every week. It's actually a lot of fun. We have Q&A, so make sure you join us there to find out more information, follow our LinkedIn page, or hop into the Slack channel. We've got a dedicated channel there for the podcast. Matthew, Diana, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us here during the AI-powered Presale Summit.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Presales Podcast. These shows are recorded live during our bi-weekly LinkedIn show called Presales Live and include a listener Q&A after each recording. To find information on the live show, head to presalescollective.com/podcast. Follow the Presales Collective page on LinkedIn or join the Presales Collective Slack. We have a dedicated channel for the Presales Podcast where you can find more information and join in the conversation after the show. We'll see you next time.